Hello everyone and welcome back to another painting video. Today I'm going to be painting a Chaos Knight Despoiler. Now the first challenge of this project was actually trying to figure out which box the Despoiler comes in, as it doesn't have its own dedicated box set. It turns out you need to get this Imperial Knight Questoris one. While I'm priming the model and adding some base coats in the background here, let me talk a little bit about the concept I have in mind. I started off by researching Chaos Knight houses to get a better understanding of their different color schemes and backgrounds, and from that, House Lucaris stood out to me the most. I really like the blue, white and black they use, combined with all the icons and decorations. I think it's so cool, so I'm gonna use that as my main inspiration. I then found this amazing blank template of a knight online, which I'll link below. Basically, I just put this into Photoshop and played around with the paint bucket tool, trying out different color combinations and kind of planning out how I was going to go about painting this. One thing I was really excited to try out with this model was a two-tone paint job. I've never done it before and I think they look so good on big knights. So here you can see me using masking tape to create the lines for the armor panels. For my first try, I think they came out half decent, but as you can see there is a tiny amount of spillover on some of the areas. I wasn't too worried about this because I knew I could just touch it up later. With all the base coats done, it was time to start tackling the trim, and my god, there was a lot of it. I counted it out at 21 pieces in total and decided to break up the painting over 3 nights, aiming to complete 7 pieces each day. Day 1 went pretty well and I managed to get all 7 pieces done. On day 2, unfortunately, I was really short on time, so I only managed to get 5 pieces completed. But then on day 3, I caught up and smashed out the rest of the 9 pieces, so yeah, mission accomplished. I should mention as well at this stage, I was starting to get a little bit worried because my knight was beginning to look a lot like a Thousand Suns unit, and that was not the look I was going for. Moving on, with the trim done, it was time to tackle the metallic areas. I pretty much just dry brushed all of these areas, which was a nice break from focusing on all the small details. But speaking of small details, there were still a few little things that needed to be painted on the model, like all the tiny missiles. Then the last thing I needed to do was paint the exhaust areas a lighter metallic color. I wanted to create that overheated metal look for the melter gun and exhaust pipes, and these are the colors I used to achieve it. Okay, one thing you need to know if you are building a Chaos Knight Despoiler is that the Knight Questoris box does not come with any Chaos decals. I didn't realize this until just before I needed them, so I ended up asking around my hobby group to see if anyone had any spare, and thankfully I was able to secure some. Thanks again, Brendan. You can probably tell by what you're seeing that I am not very experienced with applying decals to models. The skinny Chaos icons were the hardest to put on, and I ended up ruining one of them unfortunately, which is why one of the shoulder panels is blank. But otherwise, I think I got the rest of them on okay. Then, before moving on to the next steps, I sprayed the whole thing with a matte varnish to lock in all of my work so far. I should say a small disclaimer here that from this point onwards, I've never tried any of these techniques before, so I was a little bit unsure as to how it was going to turn out. To give the knight a weathered look, I wanted to try using an AK rust paint. I've watched a few tutorials on how to use these, and basically they said just cover the whole thing in paint, then wipe it off before it fully sets. And yeah, that's what I did. I pretty much just trusted the process, and I'm happy with how it turned out. The rust effect on the panels is really cool. Once all of that rust was wiped off, I was finally able to enjoy the satisfying feeling of gluing the model together and see it come to life. I forgot to mention earlier that this model is fully magnetized. I'll make sure to post a video at some point on how I did it. Now it was time to move on to the base. When I look at the House Lucaris icon, I think it looks more like a sea serpent rather than a snake. So I thought it would be cool to do like a water or ocean base for it. I was contemplating doing a resin pour, but recently I've been watching a lot of diorama and model train hobby videos, and I find them really interesting because the old school hobbyists don't use much resin for their water features. So I wanted to try out some of their techniques for myself. I started off by cutting out a piece of foam, which would be the base of my ocean, then used tinfoil to start shaping waves. Once I had glued a few of these on, I then covered the whole base with tinfoil, which gave it a smooth, water-like or maybe mountain-like look to it. I then covered the whole thing with Mod Podge and gave it a base coat of white, followed by a few different coats of different shades of blue to try and make it look more like water. I found this step really challenging and had to give it a few tries before I was ready to move on to the next step. Once that was done, I sprayed the base with a gloss varnish and it was slowly starting to look more like water. Then I used this gloss gel to add more texture to the waves. This stuff takes about 24 hours to fully dry clear, and I did it a couple of times, so this was all quite a lengthy process. After that, I grabbed a few cotton balls from our medicine cupboard and ripped them into little pieces. These were used to create the breaking wave-like texture, and I used the same gloss gel to lock them in place, and also cover the knight's feet. My sincerest apologies to anyone who is looking forward to seeing some robotic feet pics today. To finish it all off, I painted the tops of the waves with a little bit of white. And with all that done, let's take a look at how it turned out. Like always guys, if you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I'm really stoked with how this turned out. Let me know in the comments what you think. And until next time, I'll see you around.